TSTA and NEA and AFT and all the other organizations all across the country, I submit to you that to teach today, to be a teacher, to be an administrator in education, to be a parent, and to be part of that, you got the first star coming at you. It's risky. In the past, some people used to say, well, it's recognition. My mother was a teacher initially because that was the only alternative, other than getting married. Because my folks were from Kentucky. McGuffey's Readers. Her mother had been a teacher. Her grandmother had been a teacher. Her father had been a teacher. And a pastor on the side. And when you grew up as a girl in Kentucky, as my mother did, you had a choice. How come a young girl like you isn't married? How old are you? 18. What's your problem here? You're going to be homemade? Not a great deal of alternatives. Well, then you're probably going to be a teacher. And my mother went to Bowling Green school at the time. You got a 2-year teacher certificate, and she went back and taught in a class where some of the people that hadn't got out yet were still her former classmates. And now she was their teacher. I submit to you, that was risky. Now along comes Jack Jackson. And I'm going to school, and I get a letter from the government that says, Jack, we want to draft you. That was a life-changing event for me. It changed my lifestyle. It was a determination on whether I could get a job or not. Have you fulfilled your military obligation? Lost it here for a minute, Jack. Talking risk. I have 2 sons, 28 and 26. They have not the slightest idea of what the draft means. To them, it's a slight breeze, a large horse, or a beer. Now, let me tell you what I just did to you there. I showed you the risk involved. What was meaningful to me in my day from an educational standpoint means nothing to my kids from a standpoint today. Some of you men, some of that audience in darkness somewhere, went to school on the GI Bill. Some of you went to school so you wouldn't be on the GI Bill. But as long as you stayed in school, you got deferred. If you carried X amount of hours, had a certain student load, and you were passing those rascals, you don't get drafted. And that was a motivation to get an education. You want to be drafted, you want to go to school. I moved by going to school. I'll go to school. Now we come along in this day and time, and with my generation of kids behind me, 28, 26, and 24, 2 of whom were born in Tulsa. One of the many moves that I made in my life, when people sit there and say, where are you from, Jack? And I generally say, you pick it. I have been from there because I've moved 43 times. So where is from? And when you sit down and say, what are your roots? What is your background? Are you from here? Where are you coming from? What are you doing? And Tulsa and Oklahoma, going through a period of time now that it was oil and gas, and holy cats, we were on a roll, and that's great. And from Penn Square and gas on, you have been internationally known. And you have people come along and say, what are we going to do in Oklahoma, and where are we going to go, and let's attract industry, and let's big people in. I submit to you, that's an education and a risk right there. Because Bartlesville, Oklahoma is sitting around going, maybe a one-industry town isn't the most brilliant thing in the world to be in. I don't know. But that wouldn't have flown 20 years ago in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, when I lived here, and you had the Philtones and the Bartlesville and the Phillips 66, and they fly the airplane, and I'll sponsor the basketball team, and the whole 9 yards, and this is a womb-to-tomb company, and I can be here from birth to death, and it looks great. They got an education. Because it isn't that great anymore, it's risky. And the thing that changed it, and the thing that revolutionized people's thinking in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, had nothing to do with Oklahoma, had nothing to do with Texas, had nothing to do with Kansas, or the other oil areas in this country. It was a group of people whose name we can't even pronounce in a consortium called OPEC. I submit to you that's education. And when you sit there as teachers and administrators, You are literally every day messing with people's minds to get them changed. And that's what makes what we're going through as a country right now risky. Because as you start trying to change that thinking, and you go through the zone of trying to change your own thinking, you're going to get the second R coming at you, reaction. Now, I came out of an industry that for years and years and years and years and years and years and years was protected by and in the comfort zone of regulation. I spent 5 years at Tulsa, Oklahoma at the Maintenance Engineering Center. American Airlines hired me from Boeing Airplane Company because after I got drafted, I decided that I would volunteer rather than be drafted. They gave me 3 days to make that mind up. Jack, you want a choice in this? Oh, I want a choice. I want a choice. You got 3 days, Jack. Well, I'll join the Air Force and see the world. And never got out of Amarillo now. Now, isn't that funny to you? That wasn't funny to me. I was thinking I could be on a B-47 or a B-29 school and go back to Tucson, Arizona, where I lived in the first place at that time. And they gave me the old educational motivation. Jack, tell you what, get in the top 10% of your class and you'll have the choice of the base for this equipment you're going to school on. I said, oh, I'm for that. And I got in the top 10% of the class and they said, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to take the top 12% of the class and we're going to send you all to another school. But you said, wait a minute, Jack, you forgot your objective here. The needs of the service come first. Remember what you said? And I reacted to that. And many of my fellow airmen said, well, now, I don't know that this is fair. Well, I don't know what, Jackson, needs of the service come first. And at 20 years old, I was even confused there because, you see, I wasn't in a war. I ended up being in a Korean conflict. The rules were different. Can't go across the river, can't go across the river. 38 parallels ahead. Sick 'em, but stop the 38 parallel. And starting in about the Korean War, educators, we got confused as a nation as to what war even was. And now we're sitting here in 1987 looking at Platoon as an Academy Award winner with a group of young people that rolled right out of the school where you were at 17 and 18, 19 years of age, going into a conflict called the Vietnam conflict. See, I was in a conflict and it was a Vietnam conflict. Then we thought it was a war. Then we aren't sure what it is. And we're still working on it years after it's over, trying to get our minds right and messed with on what were we doing and where are we here and what did I do? So they say, if you get the top 5% of your class, Jack, you'll get the choice of whether B-47 is going to be used. And oh, great. Got the top 5% of the class, and they froze the top 6% of the class to be instructors. And I learned jets. And what I perceived as risky at the time, or as I perceived very reactive at the time, I wasn't comfortable with. And I submit right now that education is not comfortable. And the country isn't comfortable. Because now education isn't confined to Oklahoma, or an issue in Texas, or no pass, or no play, or as they're saying with Governor Clements now, down in SMU incident, no pay, no play. Because we're even confused that a lever up above you, or a level just above you, is what are we in college for? Are colleges going to do remedial instruction? Are they going to close the door on that? Are we going to do a Proposition 48? Are we going to raise the standards? How are we going here? Who's going to do it? But I submit to you it's no different than the change that has gone on in the very area that you spend your life in. You deal with change and people's minds and what's coming down the pipe all the time. That's your job. You tell the student that doesn't think they can, you can. You tell the one that's gifted and accelerated, I'll adjust to that for you. You tell the mainstreams, the upstreams, the downstreams, the vocational, and the displaced, and whatever it might be, and look how fast that's changing. In Oklahoma, 5 or 6 years ago, it was the displaced homemaker. That isn't even good anymore. It's a displaced worker. Go talk in Miami, Oklahoma. Go talk in Detroit, Michigan, where I was night before last, up in Flint, Michigan, speaking to a teachers group that they just announced in that town they're going to close 2 more General Motors plants. There'll be 10,000 people on the street by 88, 89. Let's get ready education and do something about it. And it isn't a Ford Motor Company closing those plants. It's Isuzu, Mitsubishi, Honda, You Go, We Go, Sunday and Monday. And we used to sit here in Oklahoma and say, well, them folks are jacks. I fought in World War II. And I'm sitting there as a Korean conflict veteran going, Korean-built car? I fought those people a few years back. No, international scope now. If you'll pick up Time and Business Week in the last 2, don't understand where you're going here, Jack. I'm talking about the risk we're involved with. We're now being compared for the 1988 political election to be internationally competitive. And there's an article in Newsweek magazine right now, and the other's called The Battle for the Brains. And they're comparing the United States against Russia, England, Germany, and all the others, and where we stand on the major issues from reading and comprehension and math and science and the social studies. It isn't a Kansas versus Texas versus Oklahoma versus New York issue anymore. It's a world issue. You're where it's at. You sit there and say, well, I paid in there yet, but when you get there where it's at, it gets focused. Things start changing because instead of saying, do we really need this? Do your own thing of the 60s that my kids came up through. Different. Now education's starting to take on a format of maybe that's meaningful. And if you haven't seen the meaningfulness of it, you can pick up Fortune magazine. And that particular issue is a reference because teachers like documentation. It's February 2, 87 this year, and they've got an issue in here on education in the 90s and where we're going to go and how people perceive the importance of it. You say, 90s, that's Buck Rogers stuff, folks. It's 3 years away. And I roll out of Boeing Airplane Company after I get out of the service and go to work for Boeing, which was the predecessor to the 707 jet plane. And American Airlines hired me in 1960 to come to Tulsa, Oklahoma and teach it. Now we're back to reaction. Here I was a Korean conflict veteran, jet trained. Jets were no big deal to me. That's called high tech of the 60s. They bring me to Tulsa, Oklahoma. American Airlines bought 25 707s with an option for 25 more. Late 50s, early 60s. I walked into a classroom. The students in the classroom got there by how long they'd been with American Airlines. Seniority. They were there for their presence, not necessarily their performance. I come in the classroom, I'm in my early 20s. They're in there with 25 and 30 years with American. If they got 25 and 30 years with American Airlines, folks, how old are they? How open are they to technology and change? How open are they to you messing with their minds? How open are they to additional leading-edge, innovative issues? Not too open. And I walk in the classroom, their arms are folded, their eyes are there, and their jaws are set, and there's 22 guys sitting there. Ladies, tune in a minute. 22 guys. Because the class I was teaching at that time was not a woman's role or world. Got me? I am a pilot and an engineer and a technician. Where are the women here? Secretarial, coffee, and they water the plants. Remember the guys I'm teaching? World War II, F-51, P-38, B-17, B-36, B-29, 24, 25, DC-3, DC-6, DC-7, DC, whatever, it's all the way down the line. Knew every railroad track in Deer Lease in Oklahoma, every mountain peak, and every major highway. Could roll them off to you from about 20,000 feet. Won't know exactly where I am. And I come rolling in the classroom 22 years of age. I don't get in the class 2 minutes. A guy raised his hand and says, "You here to take a roll, son?" You know what you just laughed at? Reaction. They were already prejudging me by youth. "Are you here to take a roll, son?" I said, "No. My name is Jack Jackson. I'm your instructor. I'll be with you for the next 3.5 weeks. They responded to me just like you did. Nothing. Nobody's in there, well, come on down, well, stack it on, well, I'm for that, well, let's get after it. They're just sitting there. And you can see the countenance on their face. It's going to be a long 3½ weeks. I said, gentlemen, I perceive by the countenance on your face, we got a problem. Let's just talk about it. Guy said, I got a question. Yeah. Jack, how long have you been with the company, son? 2 weeks. You know what you just laughed at? Reaction. Because you see, those that have been in it all their lives versus those that are just coming in it, we tend to judge those that have been in it by how long they've been there. I can submit something to you. There's people that have been in what they've been doing all their lives and never done anything. They just got a clipboard and kept moving. They just went to each teacher's meeting and see what the flow was. They just go to each group and say, what does this principal want to hear? What does this administrator want us to do? How does this group want us to write it? I don't want to risk it. I don't want the reaction. I don't want the heat. I'll just go with the flow. I said, gentlemen, any other questions? Yeah. Where'd you come from, Jack? Boeing. 3 strikes against me. Youth, outhouse coming in-house. Not one of them. Haven't done my time. Another guy goes, Jensen, what is this course? What are we meeting for? 707. The jet, the jet. That jet, the jet. I've already seen pictures of it, son, and the wings are bent the wrong way. Could I share something with you in this room? You just laughed at a typical education problem. If it doesn't fit the format as you perceive it, you will find something wrong with it before you know anything about it. And you all deal with it all the time with your students, but when it happens to your profession, you fall in the same trap. Well, I've seen pictures of it, and the wings are bent the wrong way. Notice nobody asked me, is there a reason for it? Will we discuss it? No, we're going to mind me about it. It ain't going to work. And I submit to you that our country over a period of time, whether it's been manufacturing techniques, whether it's been management techniques, whether it's been adaptation to change, whether it's been the acceptance of technology, whether it's been the acceptance of restructuring of our companies, or changing the rules, or changing the policies, or changing the precedents, if we see something different, most of the time we are resisting to it because we want to stay just like we have been. That's General Motors saying I'm number one. I've been number one most of my life. I don't perceive a problem here. I don't care what the people are doing. I'm going to produce it, and we're going to convince them to buy it, whether they like it or not. They got shot down by the Azuses, the Mitsubishis, and the Sonys, and they're trying to recover from it and get their minds right. Because you as the user, you as the driver, you as the one that's buying the car, says from what I perceive it as driving it is either excellent or better than what you are doing at General Motors. So I'll buy a Honda. You see, that's the same agony education's going through. From the Bennett's on down, from the Carnegie Foundation reports, from the Nation at Risk years back. People are sitting there going, I want to be able to see a differentiation in it now. And last week in New Orleans, with the governor's conference, along with your school superintendent, sit down there and said, hey, we've got a concept here. We're going to open up the school districts. And the parents and the people will be able to choose what they perceive to be the best. And if there's differentiation, they can go over there with a voucher. They can go over here with the money. That's going to be risky. Because if you're good, they're going to find you. If you're average, they're not. If you're poor, you're going to be gone. Okay, so the airlines were all the same before. Left about the same time. Fares were about the same. Differentiation, not that much. Here we go. And we all flew about the same equipment that I was coming to Tulsa, Oklahoma to teach these guys. Swept back jet, here it comes. And they're thinking DC-3, DC-6, 20,000 feet, 200 miles an hour. Land about every 150 miles or so and get oil and gas and say howdy. The flight attendants are sweet young chicks sitting on the front of the armrest going, coffee to your bean, how you doing? And today that's called sexist. And that's exactly the way we hired him, and that's the way the career was, and that's the way you interviewed him. Had to be good looking, petite, high enough to reach the emergency exit, strong enough to throw it out the door, but a sweet little smile to bring you coffee, tea, and milk. And when you got too old, I can lay you off. When you got pregnant, I can say goodbye. When you got married, your career's over. If you don't stay slim and trim and mean, I can get rid of you before you're 25. And I walk in the classroom, and the guy in the back has another hand up. He says, "How high does that thing fly, Jensen?" Notice it's still a thing, they haven't accepted it yet. Well, it flies 41,000 feet, gentlemen. 41,000, 41, 41, 41. 41, it was such a quantum change in their thinking that they just couldn't get a hold of it initially. 41,000 feet? Yes. How am I going to see Highway 66 from 41,000 feet? You know what you just laughed at? Reaction and responsibility, because now I'm taking away from them things that they were comfortable with. I know the issues. I know where the roads are. I know where I am. I can look out the window. I'm comfortable with this. And you're going to take me away from all that and move me up to 41,000 feet? Now notice we weren't going to go 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. We were going from 20 to 40 right now. That's called quantum change. They weren't comfortable with it. You know what's happening in education right now? Quantum change. It didn't move it in the 5, 10, 15, 20s. It's moving in leaps and bounds. World trade patterns have changed. Job force is changing. Technology is changing the job force. And in between all this, the politicians can't keep up with it because they've lost their political sensibility. S-E-N-S-E, some of them don't have the sense to know what to do, and some don't have the ability to know what to do. You know it, and I know it. Because they're playing the game to get reelected the next time. So they'll come say one thing to you, and they'll say something to somebody else. They've done it in Texas 2 times. What's new? That's what I thought was so appropriate with the gal coming up, laying the little check in the mail scene on you there. Going through the same thing SMU, going through the same thing with the iron Contra affair. Come on, Reagan, get clean here. Talk to us about it, Schultz. Let's see where we are. Let's see what we're doing. I submit to you that every one of those things that your kids see on television is an education. It comes back washing in the classroom that you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, how do we straighten this out? And what used to be something that you could control for a while, and you could control the pace of it, and it wasn't moving that fast, we're now having kids seeing sitcoms on television that are adult items that I didn't even figure I could handle till I was about junior high, and they're seeing it 3 or 4 years old going, I think I've got it here. And we call it soap opera. Well, that's soap opera. Now we got mini-series on about every major problem you can think of. There's something about a million. It wasn't a song. It's suicide, and incest, and coming out of the closet, and in the closet, and child abuse, and wife abuse. They're seeing it all. And you find yourself in some cases going, man, it's moving at a maddening pace. And holy cats, I haven't had the control over it like I did before. And you come to the third R. Who's responsible for this? And you sit there and go, my goodness, teaching isn't what it used to be. Right on. I've got a granddaughter. She's 3. She's a big person. She's Sesame Street. Got an elementary ed teacher mother sitting at home with her. And when they come to class after 2 or 3 years of that, before they ever got to K, before they ever got to first grade, they've already been entertained for 2 years teaching, and they come in your class and you are boring. And I'm sitting down here driving this guy mad with the camera because we weren't playing camera games. I got 100 feet of cord to come up here and sleep. Now let me tell you what you just laughed at. She'll know that when I put that on the confirmation form, I say, give me 100 feet of cord. You know what most of the educators do? They take a 0 off. He doesn't mean that. Yes, I do, because I know where you sit. And those people come along going, why, he's coming all the way to the back of the auditorium. Right on. Because I'm running a risk with you. You see, when I was in school, it wasn't a television problem. It was a radio because they were bulky and huge and big. Now technology's come along and put it in your pocket or put it in your ear, and you don't even know I'm listening to it. Because what I thought was kind of astounding about that, if you go back and look at USA Today about 4 months ago when they did a survey on where do kids turn when they're in trouble, and it isn't to parents, and it isn't to counselors, and it isn't to the religious leaders, and it isn't to the heroes of the country, they turn to music and entertainment first, put on a tape, maybe I can forget it, then drugs. And when they get all through that, then they'll get down to you and I. That's the technology touch. And here I mean, they're touching these people with technology that's going to radically change their life. 41,000 feet? Yes. How fast does it go, Jackson? 625 miles an hour. 600? 600. 625 miles an hour, Jack. Yes. They're used to 200 and a glide with a lid behind it. And one guy trying to be a little humorous said, "That's going to dry my mouth out, son." I said, "If you're in an open cockpit, it's going to tear you out." You're not only going to blink, you're not even going to nod. Let me tell you why I'm coming at you with that. The issues in education today don't stay there that long. They're just accelerating like crazy. Open concept, closed concept, in the round, in the square, 55 minutes, 87 minutes. What do? How are we going to do it? What's the classroom going to be? Peer teaching, team teaching, contracts on the teachers, contracts with the teachers. Do we have letters? Do we have rungs in the letters? Do we have a career letter and differentiation between the teachers? Are all teachers going to be the same? Are we going to be specialized, despecialized, somewhat specialized, mainstream, upstream, downstream, midstream? How are we going to do this? You're going to radically change. It's going to radically change. Because I submit to you in this room, there's differentiation in these teachers. It's already happening out in the, quote, private sector. There's differentiation in bank titles now. You're not paid for your presence anymore. You're paid for your performance. If you can perform, let's go. You got a wonderful little educational buzzword with it right now. If you hadn't read lately, it's called value added. Now let me bring that home to you. See, they were going so high and so fast, they were going, how are we going to keep up with this? You're going to change. Now, please understand how I'm coming at you with this, because I'm a teacher and I identify with you. But when I go to do these teaching services down in Texas, people ask, "I'll meet you at the airport, Jack, and I'll come pick you up." Generally, they'll send an administrator, assistant superintendent, the superintendent of the one of the curriculum that's assistant to the original one that's doing it. Because he's here to get you, but he's got to kick it off, that kind of thing. You got it. Going to do the pledge and howdy and welcome back teachers. If the superintendent picks me up, here's the question I always ask him, and it gets them for a little while. I'll say, "Why did you become a superintendent?" Now, I've kept a record of it, just so I don't blow smoke at you. You know why the majority of them became superintendents? Talking Texas now. Because they couldn't make a living as a teacher. There was a whole bunch of them that just loved to teach. I love chemistry. I love biology. I love history. I love social studies. I love English. I love drama. You can tell this guy was probably the kids were doing here in speech. I love that. But then, when I was single, I could handle that. Because just being in the pickup truck. And I had a wife. And I got married. And she wanted a house. And we got kids. And I couldn't handle it with the teaching. So I went and got stamped and certified, recertified, degrees, multi-degree, and I got administrative. And I went up to greater things. And if I couldn't take it that route, I coached. Coached the nerve there, son. See, it's all reaction. You got it. And you see some of the reasons that those people went there is because the priority of the people of the town was not education. The priority of the people of the town, as Barroso simply put it, was entertainment. I want to win a football team. So he's well known, had community contact, moving on up. Let me tell you what's happening in some school systems there. They figure principal themselves. Because they used to go around kicking kids in the can, beating them on the helmet, saying, "Sick 'em." Now you got a generation of teachers coming up who won't mess with that. You better know how to manage, administrate, and lead people. It was the same thing in the airline industry. If the guy was a good pilot and he could land a plane on a dime, make him vice president of flight. You can be a good plane pilot and not be able to manage your way out of the men's room. Because see, a lot of pilots have themselves oriented to their skills concept. See, every time I teach the pilots, they come back to class again, they come back to class again, they come back to class again. If it wasn't the 707, it was the DC-10 or the 747, or the 727, or the MD-80, whatever it might be, and I kept moving up to the later airplane. They'd see me, oh, Jack's here again, we got Jack, Jack is back. After a while, they'd say, Jack, let's just get this over, okay? My job was basically simple. I knew Orville over on the beach. The objective doesn't change much. The nose is still up front. The tail's in the back. The wings are on the left and right-hand side. And my job is basically very simple. Back on the stick, the houses get smaller. Forward on the stick, the houses get bigger. Now that's it. Let's knock off all this stuff and get on with it. That's where educators have gotten themselves so specialized they don't do the scope of what they're in the business at. That's where English sits with English, and vocational with vocational, and athletic with athletic, and the bus drivers with the bus drivers, and the dietitians with the dietitians, and the building engineers with the building engineers. And I submit to you that every one of you on a school campus, from the bus driver to the crossing guard to the most skilled PhD instructor, you're all in education. All of you. Because that bus driver teaches things on that bus. And that gal in the lunchroom teaches things in the lunchroom. And the aide in the classroom helps me teaches things in the classroom. And we think, no, you see, I am English. No, you're education. Because see, in airlines, we were divided up like that. Well, I'm a pilot. Well, I'm an engineer. Well, I'm accounts receivable. Well, I give it away. Well, I take it in. Well, I'm strategic planning. Well, I'm long range. Well, I'm short range. Well, I'm budgets. Well, I'm staff. Well, I'm a staff infection. Well, I'm... You know what American Airlines had to go through the agony of when we got deregulated? We are all in the travel business. We just use planes to get you there. And educators have got themselves so divided up into their little specialized categories, like banks have themselves divided up into specialized categories, like unions and automobile manufacturing had themselves divided up into little special categories, that after a while you were so specialized that if you weren't doing that, then the rest of that is not my job. Wrong. You will now see a complete educational change going on in the airline industry that, Captain, as your duties permit, at the end of each flight, when it is over, step outside the cockpit with your uniform on, and as the passengers deplane, thank them for their business. Well, I'm not real sure that's my job. It is now. Even when you make 3 landings at the same airport, go to the proposal once, twice, and the 3rd time. One step outside the door then, and 28 step outside the door. That's the banker that's having to finally get out from behind his firm in his desk in the bank and go out and see customers, because there's options. That's a phone company that finally says, we're off the black phones and dials, and we'll get a phone any way you want it. Where 10, 15 years ago, you want a phone, sit down, shut up, and dial it. And now a touch-tone phone doesn't even fit the wordage anymore. How do you dial a touch-tone? It isn't even circular. What's clockwise on a digital watch? See? Point of reference has even changed. So the whole thinking in America, the thinking going on in General Motors, the thinking going on in the medical profession, and the thinking going on in manufacturing, and the thinking going on in textile, hey, you better change your brain on who you're doing this for. By the time we got to how far and how fast and how high, well, how far does it go, Jackson? Coast to coast without stopping. Coast to coast at 600 miles an hour at 40,000 feet without stopping, you've got it. Man, I can leave in California, go to New York, come back the same day. You got it. Well, I'm not sure well, by the time we got to just sharing those 4 things, how high, how fast, how far, and what it could do, and how crazy it looked. I'm going to submit something to you, teachers. I was not well received. And on the way to the break, one of the veteran guys walks up to me and says, Jackson, I know how they hired you, and I know why they hired you. You're cheaper, you're outhouse, you're already trained, your mind's changed, but I'm going to share something with you, young man. I've been with this company 30 years, and I'm going to share something with you. 707 is not here to stay. It's too high, too fast, too much, too quick, and nobody's going to get on a plane where they can't see trees. Funny now. Serious thing. Point. In less than 6 years, by 1966, America had quite a ceremony at Tulsa, and they gave their last DC-6 away to the Smithsonian Institute, Aerospace Museum, Washington, D.C. You can see it up there now in the History of Aviation section, hanging from the ceiling from gigantic cables in the corporate colors of American Airlines, 1966. And those 22 men in that class are in it. Other than the 22 men that you laughed at, the rest is true. Now the Paul Harvey part, the rest of the story. American hired me because I was jet qualified and with the company that built the 707. I was in the genesis of it. Rarely in your life do you get to be in the genesis of something. I knew how it was built, I knew the design concepts, I knew the testing it went through, I knew many of the people that came up with the ideas to do it, and I knew the test pilot that tested it. American Airlines today no longer has any 707s. Then of what value am I to them, if that's all I know? You see, there's a lot of people in education and manufacturing and medicine today that have DC-3 thinking, trying to live in 767 times, and they wonder what the problem is. Because what you do and how you're doing it in the format you want to do it in doesn't meet the needs of those you're doing it for. Risk, reaction, and are you doing it responsibly? I submit to you that 5 to 10 years from now, in the mid-90s, you're going to have to change your thinking from K to 12. Because education isn't going to be a 10-year segment anymore, or a 12-year segment anymore. It's going to be a cycling thing all the time. They're looking at lifetime and cycle life of products in the mid-90s. That's where you read what's in and what's out every year. In January, what's in, what's out. In spring, what's coming in, what's going out. Not talking clothing styles here. I'm talking technology. If you had a Lotus 1, you go to Lotus 2. If you had a Lotus 2, you go to Lotus 3. If you had a PC with this printer, you go to the laser printer. If you had a laser printer, you go to Matrix Copy. Matrix Copy, you go to the super laser. If we went from tape, we're going to go to compressed disc. We go from compressed disc to flip-flop disc back to compressed disc, and then we'll go to digital tape. Now you don't know what entertainment's set to buy, because what you have now may not be what it is 2 more years from now. Product life cycle is going to go down to about 10 years. That means the jobs are going to go down to about 15. It's going to be a lifetime job anymore. And when American Airlines went through some major agonizing threat of strike restructuring back in 1983, and the union said, I'm going to walk out on you, the pilot said, you watch us shut you down. Wrong. We went to 2-tiered pay scales, restructuring of the company, changing of work jobs, and we had to change our minds from this isn't my job, but you will always have a job. We don't even know what some of them are going to be now, because the ones that we're doing now we're not going to do anymore, and the ones that are coming, we don't even have the name for them, nor know how to classify them. All I ask you to do is just be flexible enough with your mind to be willing to want to do it. Some educators can't handle that. Some middle managers of American Airlines couldn't handle that, because you see on an airplane anymore, we don't have any navigators. Navigator used to sit behind the pilot, and he was always had a sextant stuck out the top of the airplane looking for the sun or the stars. And Fred's up front trying to ask Frederick in the back, where are we, Frederick, where are we? Fred's trying to figure out where we are. Fred, as soon as I can find the sun, as soon as I can find the sun, as soon as I can find the sun, I'm going to tell you where we are. He could never tell you where you were. Because by the time you got the computers out and got the map out and set and interpolated where you expected to be, you'd already left where you were. He could always tell you where you'd just been and estimate where you are. You can be in a 767 altitude, longitude, latitude, airspeed, altitude, time to, time front, track, actual track, time off the track, superimposed on a color weather radar. Tells you where you're at right now. You know how most education is done? Reactive. That's why the private sector gets frustrated. Hey, that was great 2 or 3 years ago, but what you're doing now, it doesn't, you all are behind it here. When are you going to catch up? When are you going to catch up with us? When are you going to do it? That's what makes it so risky and so reactive. Because they perceive you not being able to stay up with them as not being what? Responsible. Don't you people know what you're doing? And you say the same thing to an airline. We used to write your ticket out when I lived in Tulsa in the 60s. Reams and reams of books sitting on the counter to figure out what your fare is. Now it's loaded in the computer. It's already figured. All we need to know is where do you want to go? And we run a survey on you. And we found out that 98.5% of American passengers know where they want to go. Our deputies get you there. And surrounding you in the private sector, I can get my own money from a bank at my hours. I can go to the doctor when I'm off because I'm a single parent, head of household female. And I can't come banker's hours anymore. I can't come get a zit off on your hours. So that triggered 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week doctor boxes. Called freestanding medical clinics. Revolutionized how you go to the doctor. When's the 10 o'clock news anymore? When is news anymore? 24 hours a day. When can you get money? 24 hours a day. When can you eat? 24 hours a day. When is food in or out of season? Tell me what's seasonal crop anymore. The only difference is whether it's fresh or frozen, or reconstituted, or dried out, or from concentrate. My daughter's 24. Her mother taught her how to cook, but she's in a lifestyle, being vocationally trained, called a sculptured nail technician. It didn't even exist 10 years ago. And even though Texas has its problems with the economy, Ginger has no recession in sculptured nails. She just come in like 5 on me again, and 5 over here, because I've got to go and get my nails looking good. And you can't even tell they're not your nails. Now here's the irony of it in this room. She doesn't have a degree in it. She has a certificate in it. She makes more than most of you. Got the picture? And we're sitting there going, what is going on here? I've got a son in Kauai, Hawaii that's a skin dive. Scuba town. 9 areas of expertise: underwater, caves, dark, open water, ice, etc., etc. His ultimate goal is to be an underwater archaeologist. I'm going, hey Rick, how about dry land? He's going, there's more under we don't know than there is over than we don't know. And I've got another son that's a CPA. Moves figures around for Champlin Oil Company. It used to be in Eden, Oklahoma. It made a major restructuring and moved it to Fort Worth because it was bought by Union Pacific Railroad. And they didn't want to move. And John is in his 20s. He's already a third-level supervisor because the Oklahoma didn't want to move down here. I don't want to risk it. But I got a fast-track son that's saying, bring it on. You want me to do it? And you have the responsibility, I'll take the risk and let's go. Get in line, boy, and do your time. You risk it, you move. Guess who the majority of the people under him are? Older than he is. You know what the difference is? Education. The skill to do it. Being able to perform. The other's going, I'll just go on, going on, doing what I've done because I'm comfortable in it. Quiver goes right down. They're looking at him going, how long have you been here, boy? Can you even say Champlin? If you didn't get the subtlety of it, here's what I want you to understand. Not one of those jobs that my kids are in is productive. They're service sector. And the government's running around now going, oh, service sector's hamburger flipping and cheap jobs and the women are all in them. Wrong. Because you see, the Labor Department hadn't even caught up on what the jobs in the service sector are. Senator Day O'Connor earning grunt money. Well, she's a Supreme Court judge, and I think that's service sector. Yield management planning and airline, service sector. Interpersonal skills and human resource asset management. That's going, keep rearranging the job so you get the most out of your folks. There ain't a label for it. Frequent flyer program didn't even exist 5 years ago in American Airlines. Now it employs hundreds of employees in American Airlines. And the government going around going, I don't think we got that categorized yet. Right on. So they don't know what the service sector is yet. But I submit to you that when you look at the feminization of the workforce that's going on now, which is the other thing sweeping the area, and you've got gals in your school that have other alternatives than teach or get married. It has revolutionized the male concept of it. Because we have almost 80 women pilots in American Airlines. 2 weeks ago or so, they made headlines down in Dallas-Fort Worth because the first all-female crew landed a 727 at Dallas-Fort Worth, and they all stepped out of the cockpit with a rose in the lapel. And everybody getting off going, golly gee, that's a weird-looking guy. So we had women pilots for years. But it wasn't easy. Because we had to change a lot of mindset. And the reason American Airlines was the first to come up with a woman pilot in the cockpit is because prior to that, we had had a rather controversial issue in that we were sued by stewardesses that said, you can't lay me off because I got too old, or I got married, or I got pregnant. And we're going, why? Well, hey, well, have you read the rule here? You know the precedent here? You know the policy here? You know the Long. We messed around with that for 11 years and lost. And had to go back and offer all those people for 10 years their jobs back pay, seniority, the whole 9 yards. So we thought up a revolutionary concept. Let's be the first to hire a woman pilot and get over it. I don't understand where you're going with this, Jackson. I'm talking about risk, reaction, responsibility, and some of the solutions to it. I submit to you that when you're in adversarial conditions, that is the seedbed of creativity. There's no better time in education to do meaningful things than when you're perceived to be in trouble. There's no more meaningful times in the history of this country of where some people have risen to the task. When it looked like it was hopeless, there's no alternative. Good gosh, there's just little 13 states there. They'll never make it. Boston Tea Party. And we take that thing to Civil War. Then we look at Davy Crockett. And we talk Alamo. And we run the flag up in class. And we talk Oklahoma Land Rush. And Indians and the whole 9 yards. And we're in it right now and can't see the opportunity. But it's all over. Because now, those that are in the workforce, from the feminization of management, we're going through a revolution of the thinking. There's women now that don't want to be Rotarians. They want to be Rotarians. And the Rotary folks were having a struggle with that, going, wait a minute, you're supposed to have your business here. I own it. Well, you're supposed to, I have a degree in it. Well, all the criteria that they run through the four-way test, is this the truth? Is this fair to all concerned? Will this build goodwill and better friendship? What are we doing? It's got them singing. The Kauaians are going through it. Because the roles are changing. JC's have given up saying, let them go. So that's the whippers. They're younger, they ain't hang. But it's coming. And now we see guys doing what women used to do. Got flight attendants coming down the aisle. We don't even call them stewardess college anymore. It's flight attendants. Male and female doctors. Male and female truck drivers. Got people sitting out there, technicians, and strategic planning, and financial planning. And if you look at your data now, you'll find that the number of new businesses that are going in entrepreneurial areas right now are being opened predominantly by women because they got boxed in the traditional areas, either in education or manufacturing, where they are now, so they just start their own business. I don't understand where you're going, Jackson. You better get your kids ready for it. If you got some kids rolling out of here with a pickup truck, gun rack, beer can mentality, they're going to get zinged out there trying to compete. They're going to get zinged. And if they're not real careful, they're going to get a lawsuit. Now, in a few minutes, I'm going to touch that and get back positive. See, I went through the zone when the first woman pilot came in American, and we had World War II thinking, sitting in the cockpit, and the old guy sat there and said, well, I mean, if we have to hire one because we have to, but I'm going to just tell you this, she's not going to fly with me during her period. Not funny in the cockpit. Not funny. Just play it back on the tape. Want to hear that again? Because if I physically perform, that's not the issue, then I won't fly with you when you got prostate trouble, okay? If you guys from Loom start bringing up those old arguments, and here's what it is, and here's the what, here's the who, better look at what you think right stuff is. Because I'll remind you that the Voyager went around the world with an unrefueled flight, and it was a male-female crew that did it, and it was the guy that wanted to give up. It was the gal getting banged around back in the fuselage going, if this had been easy, somebody else would have already done it. You can't fly it, I'll take it, let's go. What is the right stuff? And what you've got to sit there in education with your mind and how you think, whether you be a counselor or whether you be a career planner and you're trying to direct kids different areas to go, I submit to you that these are the times that what people can do regardless of their sex, creed, color, background, ethnic group, whatever they want to be, the opportunities are now unlimited, but we're spending a great deal of time trying to limit them based on how we used to perceive it, not how it really is. Because after Jackson got through going to the tech zone, then the deregulation zone came to American Airlines. There's a lot of people in American Airlines that could not handle the change. And they gave them an early retirement. And in education, I close with this as we think in the last few minutes. What's the classroom going to be 10 years from now? Is it going to be a building, concrete? What if I can take the course on satellite dish, and if I can perform it and I can do it, why should I come sit in your classroom and listen to it? You know the number 2 use for VCR tape today on USA Today 2 weeks ago? Number 1 is entertainment, number 2 is education. You know what's already happened in the college group just above you? There are more people getting continuing college credit in the private sector than there are in universities. The IBMs are doing their own, the TRWs are doing their own, the Arthur Young accountants are doing their own, the oil companies are doing their own, because the colleges wouldn't get flexible and bend to do it the way they need it done. And now they're losing enrollment because the baby boom's coming down, and they're getting lean and mean on trying to look for bodies, and Texas is looking at how many universities they need to close, and it's all little turf and protections and fiefdoms and little political arenas there, and the student be damned, but the arena and my politics, that's the key. Doesn't take the student long to see it. Doesn't take the parent long to see it, and more importantly, doesn't take the politician long to see it. If you get enough votes going one way, they'll close it. I don't know where you're going there, Jackson, because the governor's just approved, along with the supervisors and the superintendents, down at that meeting in New Orleans, that if a school is not cutting it, then the state will take it over. If it is the financial viable, we will turn around and close it down. That makes every school board member just go, oh my goodness. Because you see it ain't fun to be a board member anymore. You better do something. What's your point, Pop, Jackson? If you're good and you're a good teacher, you don't have any problem. They're going to find you. But if you're just treading water, mediocre, caretaking indicator, waiting for the watch, they're going to find you quick. And you're going to be gone. Because there's going to start being differentiation in education. And it's going to be the superintendent's choice, and it's going to be the board's choice. It's going to be the pupil and parent choice. And when they get that voucher in their hand, and when they get that power in their hand, you better be good. Because the airlines thought we were the only choice. The phone company thought we were the only choice. Sit down, shut up, and dial your black phone. And now Radio Shack's down here in Fort Worth going, want to buy a phone? See how funny you got? See how funny you got? Notice what I said. Radio Shack said. They aren't even a phone company. Because their storefront educators open up education storefronts down in Dallas, Fort Worth. No pass, no play. Don't think your kid's going to make it. Can't do math. Can't do reading. Can't comprehend. Tell you what, you bring them down to the storefront, we'll guarantee they will. Oh, and we open your hours, by the way. If you want it 9 o'clock at night, you got it. Want it 6 a.m. in the morning, you got it. Doctor comes in and says, this is when I do zits. He just comes in, where can you come in when you get rid of the zit? I do zits any day you can come in. Same day surgery. I'll have the choice whether you want to walk through, lay down, go out local, or just hang it up for 3 days. How you want to do it? How you want to do it? Harris Hospital down in Fort Worth says, how you want to have your baby? 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 7 days, guaranteed price up front. If you don't use the delivery room, I don't charge you for it. You just top hook and go home today. Don't do it. See what you're laughing at? I messed with your mind. If you told the doctors 10 years ago they'd have that kind of choice, they'd say, no way. You know what drove them to it? DRGs, cost caps, and regulation. So that's all we're going to charge you more, doctor, because that's all we're going to pay you. Same pressures come in education. Same pressures happen in manufacturing. Same pressures happen in airlines. Same pressures happen in utilities. Utility companies are jumping through Oklahoma right now going, oh my gosh, if they let us wheel and deal on each other's lines and we all get hooked up here, man, I don't know where I'm going to be in the company. Right on. Because there isn't a power shortage, it's just in the wrong place. Just like the gas shortage that never was. There never was a gas shortage, it just wasn't where the cars were. You understand me? What was hanging up the gas shortage was politics and games and turfs and all that. What was hanging up the utilities was politics and games and turf and all that, and it's going. And what was hanging up the banks was the same thing, politics and turf. And when Oklahoma and Texas got in bad straits here with money, we used to say, don't let them Yankees come to Oklahoma and Texas. Don't let them Yankees come down here. Texas down there going, if you got money and you're a Yankee, come in this house. And that's what I want to close on. Risk, reaction, and responsibility. I would hope that your educational scope is broader than Oklahoma. Because we're doing dumb things. Down in Texas in '73, we put bumper stickers on our pickup trucks saying, drive 90 and freeze a Yankee. It's very funny. But 10 years later, you go to Connecticut and they got a pickup truck bumper sticker on their bumper saying, drink your oil, Ted. What I'm trying to share with you is we're not state anymore. We better think nationally. No. We better think world. If you pick up Business Week and Battle for the Brain, it's a world battle anymore. We're not talking first world, third world, second world country. We already are in certain areas. And when you pick up the positive things with these articles, let me tell you what most people believe and are firmly convinced that the answer is education. So what's the positive things turning around? Carnegie forums that say, career ladder to teachers, and if they're worth it, pay them 80 grand if it takes it. Right on. If that's what it takes, pay them. And they don't have to go be a superintendent or a curriculum person to make the money. If they're good, pay them. That'll take all those you off that aren't. That's the union that wants everybody paid the same at American Airlines. No, if you're good, you'll risk it, you get performance. I'll pay you. See how quiet I got? And you all are sitting there fighting career ladders like crazy, nuts. Because whether you're individual judges or whatever, eventually I'll submit to you just like the airlines, just like General Motors, just like Goodyear, just like the textiles, you will eventually be judged by the user. And if the user perceives that you're good, they'll pay you. Because I got grandkids that I want to be good. And that's what Texas is going to go through in the next year with this legislature where they're trying to make education cuts. And Ross Perot says, you cut it and I'll be on you like a duck on a June bug with a bunch of people to make the difference. And I saw a bumper sticker on an Oklahoma pickup truck a while back that said, Will Rogers never met Ross Perot. But Ross Perot's made a difference because it started turning around down there. Because you see what you got quiet about in here is it's just like that plane, or it's just like politics or whatever. Education is going to be a lifestyle changing event in the next 5 to 6 years. There'll be less kids in school. Because we're going to call them the post-baby bust. People sitting around going, my store, we're going to close them. What are we going to do? I've already been in Detroit, folks. And they're doing some neat things up there. And rather than close the schools, the AARP, American Association of Retired Persons, they go in and use the gym in the elementary school in the morning for their aerobics. And they jump around on one end of the gym. The kids are jumping around on the other end of the gym. Then in the afternoon during study hall time, they have a surrogate parent. And those older teenagers that have been jumping around on one end, they got hooked up to a kid on the other end, and I'll do one-on-one with you, and we'll read, and we'll learn, and we'll do puzzles. And some of them aren't certified teachers. But they're in there as an aid to help you, and you know what most of them do it for? Nothing. Because they're saying I'm alive again. I was on a trash heap of 55 years old. Nobody gave a good round of rib. I got a kid that shows me their papers every day. And here's what I've done. And they're getting more than smiley faces. They're getting a personal touch. And it has revolutionized that school. Instead of the ARP having to pay rent for a building that they couldn't afford, or they weren't going to do it, they've gotten in conjunction with the school. That's called alliances, and it will astound you what happens, what you knew all along, that when the parents and the pupils and the teacher get together, it is unlimited in what you can do in education. And they're out there with latch key and no key and some key, and they call on the phone. When they get in, you call this number, and I got you hooked up with an Autumn's Leave Home, or another ARP group. You got to match with the kids. And somebody says, well, who's going to man the phones and who's going to pay for it? What's the theme of telephone companies? Reach out and what? touch somebody, they pick up the tab. Just let us advertise it. There's people taking early retirement now. How early is early? All the way down to 50. They're sharp. They're multi-degree. They've got the talent. They've got the background. They've gone out and used it. And when you sit here in school and struggle with kids that go, I don't see where you need this. I don't see the application of this. I don't see we have to do this. This is ding-ding. They can come in and refresh your school. Houston, Texas, Dow Chemical laid off. What's the hard teachers to get? Chemistry, sciences. Because they can make more money where? Private sector. This guy got laid off by Dow. He didn't get laid off. He chose an early retirement. His kids are all done. They're out of school. He doesn't want to leave Houston. He's got his house paid for. Teacher got great with child that taught the science. He went into class to substitute with her for a semester. Kids loved him. He brought it alive. Here's an application. You may not think why you need this. Let me show you. Here's a neat thing. Just did some crazy stuff in class. Kids going, wow, this is great, fantastic. Guy knew what he was doing. Second semester, you can't teach, you aren't certified. Dumb. Because they didn't have those teachers anyway. But that superintendent stuck his neck out and took a risk and videotaped what the guy could do. Got parents to sit there and say, my kid is a different person with that guy in the room. Took it down to Austin and said, look what you're doing with this dumb rule, folks. And by the time you hook up some alliances going on out there in the marketplace with some talent that's just laying out there going, I don't want your pay. I've already got retirement. I'll work cheap. I'll fill that slot where nobody else wants to go. I'll do the grunt stuff. Two of you get together and it'll be amazing what it'll be accomplished. From latchkey to substitutes in the classroom, to learning resource that is alive, it isn't a book. People got data sitting on a shelf with computers that nobody uses because the principal doesn't know anything about it. Superintendent doesn't know anything about it. Know what they are? Illiterate. They're tech illiterates. So they don't push it because they don't know anything about it. The teacher says, I had one of these quick and dirty courses, tried it once, didn't work, students start out with a village idiot, and I'm not going to go up there and be a village idiot again. So Texas Instrument says, I'll loan you an executive till all your teachers are trained. They'll just come in your school. They'll teach you the hardware. They'll teach you the software. And they'll teach at your hours. You can do it on lunch and learn. You can do it mid-afternoon. You can do it mid-morning. You can do it with breakfast. And rather than your teachers have to come back at night or come on a special day like this with Jack Jackson so I get my credit for my OEA that I went to it and I'm good and I'm doing it. I'll do it on your time. Teachers think, good, night this guy's in here all my time. Right on. They said, is he certified? He didn't want your job, folks. He makes 2 times what you make. He wants to sit there with your job. The company just says, I'll help you. Everybody knows, well, I'm hung up on the roof. Well, I'm hung on the roof. Well, so they went down to the top of the school and turned the whole thing around. See, somebody had to take the risk of that and take the reaction of that until it became a responsible thing. And when it got going, everybody said, well, I think I'll get on that program. You forget the risk. Because you see, when Mr. Crandall made those revolutionary statements in '83, they called Mr. Crandall Darth Vader. And they hired some attorneys to go around and find out if a man's mother and father had ever gotten married. Because he was a bastard. Now he's winning awards in the Wall Street Journal going, turn the company around. But that doesn't mean it was over because the pilots went through an agonizing reassessment of their contract again. Why? Because the TI is coming in and an Eastern's coming in. And they're doing it either better or cheaper or the equivalent as with less money. And folks, when you go out and get on a plane and perceive the service to be about the same but cheaper, guess what you'll do? You'll get on the cheaper. It's coming in education. Because some of your people have gone out in the private sector that were formerly with you in organized companies and curriculums. They're going to be competing with you. But there's some visionary educators, one of them being down in Arlington, who used to be the superintendent of schools up in Oklahoma City, that came out publicly in the paper and said, if our students don't cut it, it's money back guarantee. You can send them back to our schools till they're up to the standards that you think they need to be at, as long as we coordinate together. They're going, man, what are you doing? Accountable. That's Federal Express saying, I'll get the package to you by 10:30 the next day, or it's what? Free. It's not free. It's on me. Free to you, on me. And see, I remind you that 10 years ago that used to be the airline business, and we didn't want to fiddle with it. And you'll pay a Cadillac price to ship something to Federal Express. Why? Because it's reliable and you know it will be there. Post office has been here for years, since the pony. But see your laugh? They don't want to put it on the pony if the pony doesn't get there on time. So what they're paying for is quality and excellence. If you're an excellent thinking person, I admire you. Because if you expect it to speak and they think it can be, then they'll raise their level whatever they are they're doing. I paid the price for that as a parent. Because I expected a lot out of my kids, but not something beyond their capability, and I just said homework first and then television. And my wife and I, for about 8 years, were at the bottom of the bell curve of mental retardation. We knew all the home phone numbers of our teachers. That was a struggle because some of them thought they were going to get an obscene phone call. They weren't comfortable with it. But it took us a while to establish a relationship and eliminated a lot of baloney. Because my kids lied a lot. Just like this girl talked about. Got a sign tonight? Nope. Want to call Miss Smith? Don't call Miss Smith. See how it changed? And they knew that we knew that you knew that I knew that we all knew. It really cleared the water with our kids. But we were son of guns for a while. We were not held in high esteem. But they put the worst of all guilt trips in closing on us. Daddy, you don't love me. If you love me, you. I said, because I love you, I am. And they discussed my roots on occasion. Along with my wife. Along with the teacher. But when they got old enough to look back, and this is the last thing, the results of what you do, risk, reaction, responsibility, and the reward doesn't come in an instant. Education isn't microwave mentality. Education isn't instantaneous. Education isn't always convenient. You see, I've got kids that don't fully understand that because they've grown up in a very convenient, instantaneous thinking world. This closes it. My kids have never waited for a radio to warm up. They're transistor kids. They are not tube kids. I had to change my lifestyle when they got old enough to drive. Do not get in the car and turn on the ignition. Get in the car, turn off the radio, then turn on the ignition. Because if you didn't, it blew you right out of the car. See, some of you older folks let the radio warm up. My kids turn it what? On. It's a whole new definition of on. My daughter does not cook, she warms up. She doesn't eat 3 square meals a day a la agriculture. She grazes all day. My boys graze all day. And the food industry has adapted to that. Fast food, 24 hours a day. Chicken on a stick, pizza on a stick, salad on a stick, lasagna on a stick. You want it on a stick? How fast you want to get it on a stick? I'll get it there for you. Fast food. You went to a drive-in. My kids go to a drive-through. You did dishes. Mine throw them away. You can put a weenie in a bun, in a napkin, in a microwave, and dial it wrong, and blow the weenie sky high. In about 5 seconds. Now, if you're a teacher in the room, let's put this in perspective. We've lost 2 very key things we used to cook with. I didn't see it smoking. I didn't smell it burning. We've lost 2 essential elements to cook. You just heard it blow. My mother's 80. She hasn't adjusted to it yet because she doesn't understand totally how to warm something up versus heat something up. It's too quick for my mom. My son rarely goes into a bank. He passes through the bank and picks up money out of an ATM. You can get your own ticket on an automatic ticketing machine. You got drive-through cleaners, drive-through food stores, drive-through banks. Detroit, where I was last month, drive-through funeral parlor in a high-crime area. Because they're an ethnic group that still wants to respect the dead, still wants to show respect. I want to be at a wake, but you can't sit at a wake all night because somebody come in and beat you up in a high-crime area. So they got them laid out in the window with a bank drawer. Just drive-through, look like Fred, you look like Fred me. Time to work. I can tell you're not ready for that anymore. Okay? You got instant photography. You got CAT scan, magnetic resonance scanning. I can tell you 23 things wrong with your blood. Just with one sample, run it through a machine. You don't wait for the x-ray to develop. It's just done in a few seconds. You don't have 3-day photo service anymore. You have 1 hour photo service. You don't get your glasses prescribed, come back on Thursday and pick them up. You can get your glasses done in about an hour. If you want contacts, I can change the color of your eyes right now. You don't like my eye color? No, I'll make it green. You want green, you want blue. How do you like mine? I can figure out an account in an instant. I can computer aid design in an instant. I can computer aid manufacture in an instant. Now artificial intelligence is coming along going, I can sense it, feel it, pick it up, and do that same mundane task over and over again, better than you can do it. I can tell you where we are on an airplane right now, because the pilots are looking at 2 CRTs in front of the pilot, 2 CRTs in front of the co-pilot, and 2 CRTs between them. 6 television screens in the cockpit. I can land the thing 0-0, category 4 landing, and you never saw the runway. You just heard the wheels squeak. Going, are we down? If you said that to people a few years back, they'd say, no way, it's already here, folks. So my kids got instant on the brain. Want to be instantly entertained? Pop a VCR and a tape in. Want the news? Turn to CNN every 28 minutes. Point. Education. Integrity. Relationships. Honesty. Morals. Ethics. Family. Love. Work. Work ethic, loyalty, all these things we talk about that parents think you ought to teach them, take time. It takes all of us doing it. Because see, I had one kid go through school, gifted, and I wasn't. It's terrifying. Blew by me about the 4th grade. That was John. He graduated magna almost semi. Brother went right behind him, that's Rick, same school. John was on the dean's list the first 6 weeks. Rick was on the dean's list the first week. Grade probation, dorm probation. John had come home from school, how you doing? Well, I got a 3/8 on that, got a 4 on account. In business communication, I got a 10%. But by the time you add it all up, Dad, it'll be about a 3.7. Rick, how's school going? Outstanding, Dad, outstanding. Found out that if you took a record jacket cover, you open in the record jacket cover, fill that baby up with shaving cream, slide under your guy's door, stomp on it. You can fill the whole room up with shaving cream, and the record jacket. It is fantastic jacket. It's just great there. How's the grades, Rick? Now keep in mind, we're both at school, both being asked the same question. I had one down there, cum laude, had another down there, laude how come? I had one that set the pace. I had one that just, hey, it's a new day. It's all right. Here's the difference in closing. The only difference between John and Rick was time. Rick took more time. And he's fine. Ginger decided her vocation in a better way in another channel. All I ever ask of my kids, and all I ever ask of the teachers to ask of my kids, that we ask of them together, is that whatever they do, I don't give a good rattle on what it is, just let's urge them to do it well. And if it's shoveling manure, let's get after it. Because you see, I don't mind saying my kids are vocational trained, or they're degreed, or they're non-degreed. They're educated. And you're the neat folks that did it. Because you got them through some things, through some crazy times that everybody said, man, this is never going to work out. Education is family. And instead of being king of 12 anymore, the last thought I leave with you is that with what's going on with the trends and where we're going to go and displace workers and restructuring and revolutionizing going on in world trade and all the things coming down and technology and job forces changing and the politics involved with it, you will never be without a job. And those that don't have you, whether they be nations or states or regions, will not have. Because you pick up Time Magazine, you will find a 2-page ad in the middle of that booger that says, come to South Carolina because we've got it. And you know who's featured in the ad? Teacher of the Year vocationally, Teacher of the Year NEA, and Teacher of the Year for the state. We got the best. So when you bring your people here, we've got it. Point is, would you want to be in that ad? Because you see, coming down the line, I am convinced you are where it's at. I hope that you can hang on to what's going through and all the revolution that's going through, that when we come out on the end result of it, is that you get the reward for being there. But when it gets changed and when it gets done, I'll be one of those voting for you. Because I got grandkids that need you.